Hello students, welcome to the next session on computer graphics and visualization. So in this particular video session, we'll be discussing different ways to identify the concave polygons, splitting a concave polygon into convex polygon, and so on. Okay. Now let us look at a bunch of algorithm which is used to identify if a polygon is a concave or a convex polygon. Suppose they give you a polygon. Okay, we are supposed to classify it as a convex or a concave polygon. So you have two algorithms that is given in your syllabus. Let us check the first algorithm. Okay, identifying a concave polygon by calculating the cross product of successive pairs of edge vectors. So in the first algorithm, we identify a concave polygon by calculating the cross products of successive pair of edge vectors. If we set up a vector for each polygon edge, then we can use the cross product of adjacent edges to test for concavity. So what do we need to do is we need to find the cross product of the adjacent edges to test for the concavity. All such vector products will be of the same size for a convex polygon. Now suppose if the polygon was a convex polygon, all the cross product of the adjacent edges should give us the same sign. Either all the cross product should yield a positive sign or a negative value. In such a scenario, we can consider that polygon to be a convex polygon. Now if there is a difference, if some of the cross products yields a positive value and some other cross product of the edge vectors yields as a negative value, in that case we can treat it as a concave polygon. So therefore, if some cross product yields a positive value and some yield a negative value, we can consider it as a concave polygon. Let us look at one example to understand this algorithm in a better way. So here we have an algorithm which is having 6 edges: edge E1, E2, E3, E4, E5 and E6. So first step is we assign a vector value, or vector value for each of these edges. So what will be the vector value for edge E1? If I consider the edge E1, how can I represent as a vector? So let us first find that. So edge E1, we say it is moving, edge E1 is moving from V1 to V2, so the displacement along x-axis, the positive displacement along x-axis, let me just consider it as 1. Do we have any displacement along y-axis? No, the line is just, the edge is just a horizontal edge, there is no vertical displacement, so the y component will be 0. What about the z component? Again, it is not moving in the z axis, so z component will also be 0. So the edge E1 can be represented by a vector representation 1, 0, 0. What about the edge E2? If we consider the edge E2, okay, so how can you represent it using a vector representation? By considering the displacement along x, y and z. So we can treat it as, okay, first let us check if there is a displacement along x axis. Yes, it is moving from left to right. Right, so there is a positive displacement along x axis. So along x component, let us give it as a positive value, say 1. What about the y value? Also this edge is moving from bottom to top. There is a vertical displacement as well. So y component will also having a positive displacement, that is represented by 1. What about the z component? There is no z component because it is a xy plane. Right, so that let us treat it as 0. So edge E1 we can represent it as 1, 0, 0 because there is only a displacement along horizontal axis. Okay, edge E2 it is moving displaced along both positive x axis as well as positive y axis, so I can represent it as 1, 1, 0. Now as per the algorithm, we need to find the cross product of these two adjacent edges. If you can look at the diagram, edge E1 and edge E2 both are adjacent edges. Let us try to find the cross product E1 cross E2, right? E1 cross E2. So let me just use a pen. E1 cross E2. How do we find the cross product of two vectors? If you can recall your mathematics that you have learnt earlier, how do you find the cross product of these two vectors E1 and E2? What is the formula? We need to find the determinant value. Okay, so this is the x component, we have the y component and the z component. So you can write it something like this: x you have the y and the z component, right? So what is the x component, y component, z component of E1 vector? It is 1, 0 and 0, right? So what is the x by z component of edge E2? 1, 1, 0. So what is E1 cross E2? It is a determinant. How do you find the determinant? It is given by x into, so it's given by x into the diagonal, the opposite determinant value. Let me just rewrite it. So x open bracket into, how do you do that? 0 into 0 minus 1 into 0, that will yield us a value 0, right? So x into 0 into 0, I think you know the cross product here, right? So this into this minus this into this, so that is going to yield us a value of 0, okay? Minus y into, again the cross product, 0 into 1 minus 1 into 0, right? So it will be 0 into 1 minus 1 into 0. What is the value? Again that is going to yield us a value of 0, okay? So y component will also be 0 in this particular case of E1 cross E2, okay? So y, the product of y, the component of y to be multiplied with will also be 0, because 0 into 1 is 0, minus 1 into 0 will also yield us a value of 0. So y into 0 plus the equation or the formula for the determinant z, let me write the z in a better way. So z into the remaining components. What are the remaining components we have here? Z into 1 minus 1 into 0. So z into 1, that is 1 minus 0, so that will be 1. So E1 cross E2 will yield you the value. How can you write it? It is going to give you a value of x component is 0, y component is 0, z component is 1, positive 1, okay? Z component will be positive 1. So what can you consider here? What can you conclude? We can conclude that the cross product, or the z component of the cross product of E2 cross E1 cross E2 will be a positive value. That is what is given here. So E1 cross E2, the z component of it will be 1, which is greater than 0. Similarly, what about E2 cross E3? So E2 we have already found out 1, 1, 0 is the representation for E2. What about E3? E3 is negative displacement along x-axis, so it will be minus 1. What about y? It will be plus 1, z will be 0. So you can find out E2 cross E3. For the sake of understanding, let me just write E3 as, how do you write E3? E3 equal to, the x component is negative because we are moving from right to left, right? We are moving from right to left, so it will be minus 1, y component will be plus 1, z component will be 0. So you can just find out E2 cross E3 using the same determinant equation, and we will find that the z component value will yield a positive value. What about for E3 cross E4? Let us find out. How do you represent E4? So what is the representation for vector E4? It is given by, okay, let us consider the edge E4. Now there is no displacement along x-axis, so the x component will be 0. There is a positive displacement along y-axis, so it will be 1. Again, it's a xy plane, so there is no scope for the z-axis, that will be 0. What about E3 cross E4? So it is x, y, z. X component will be 0. Y component minus y into y component will be 0. What about the z component? Z component will be 1 into minus 1 minus 1. Okay, so let me just rewrite it here. E3 cross E4 will yield us a value. The z component of it will be, well, let me first write E3 cross E4. Okay, so let me just reuse the pen. So E3 cross E4 will give me the value of the x component will be, so let me just erase this unwanted lines here. So open bracket, so x into x component will be 0 into 1 minus 1 into 0, that will be 0. What about the y component? Y component will be 0 into minus 1 minus 0, so that will also yield us a 0 value. So there is no y component also. Now let us come to the z component. Plus z into, how do you find the z component? 1 into minus 1 minus 0 into 1, so that is going to give us a minus 1 value, which is a negative value. Z component of E3 cross E4 is a negative value. That is what they have mentioned here, right? So we found that for some of the cross product of the adjacent edges it is positive, and some of the cross products of the adjacent edge vectors will give us a negative value. So that is one condition to check if it is a concave polygon. Hence, by our conclusion, we can conclude that it is a concave polygon. Let us go through the algorithm once again. If you set up a vector for each polygon edge, then we can use the cross product of the adjacent edges to test the concavity. All such vector products will be of the same sign for a convex polygon. We found that that is not the case here. So hence we can conclude it's a concave polygon. Therefore, if some cross products yield a positive value and some yield a negative value, we say it's a concave polygon. So our test is successful. We can determine, or we can conclude that this particular polygon is a concave polygon. Why? By using the algorithm of finding the cross product of the adjacent edges and checking whether all the positives, or whether all the cross product are of the same sign. That was not the case here. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cross products give us the positive value and one cross product give us the negative value. Hence, we can conclude it's a concave polygon. Let us look at one more algorithm to identifying the concave polygon. This is algorithm number 2. So look at the polygon vertex positions relative to the extension of any one edge. If some vertices are on one side of the extension line and some are on the other side of the extension line, then the polygon is a concave polygon. That is one more approach. We need to extend any of the edges. So let me just extend this edge V1, V2. Okay, let me just extend this edge infinitely. Okay, so this edge does not give us any results, so let me just extend this edge. Okay, if I extend this edge V3, V4, what you can find is one part of the polygon is below this edge and one more part is above this particular extended edge. So this is one more way to determine if it's a concave or a convex polygon, right? So first method is by finding the cross product of the edges, what we did just now. Second method is extending a line segment. If some vertices are on one side of the extension line and if some vertices are on other side, we can say that the polygon is concave. You can see if this edge V3, V4 is extended, vertices V2, V3, V1 and V6 will be below this line segment, and the vertices V4 and V5 will be, or the vertices V5 will be above this particular line segment. So this is one more algorithm or one more method to determine it's a concave polygon. Okay, now let us try to understand how can we split a concave polygon into a bunch of convex polygons, or in simple ways how to convert a concave polygon into a convex polygon. That is achieved by splitting the concave polygons. We need to split the concave polygon into a set of convex polygons using edge vectors and the edge cross products, or we can use the vertex positions relative to an edge extension line to determine which vertices are on one side of this line and which are on the other. So there are different methods. The first method that we have is called as a vector method for splitting a concave polygon. So here first we need to form the edge vectors, as what we did earlier. For every edge of the polygon we need to consider it as a vector. Now given two consecutive vertex positions vk and vk plus 1, we define the edge vector between them as ek equals to the difference between vk plus 1 minus vk. We need to calculate the cross products of the successive edge vectors in order around the polygon perimeter. If the z component of some cross product is positive while the other cross products have a negative z component, then the polygon is concave. That is what we just determined now. We can apply the vector method by processing the edge vectors in counterclockwise order. If any cross product has a negative z component, as shown in this particular diagram, the polygon is concave and we can split it along the line of the first edge vector in the cross product pair. So what they are telling us, suppose I have a polygon something like this. How many edges do we have? Edge E1, E2, E3, E4, E5 and E6. And these are the different polygons edges that we have: edge E1, E2, E3, E4, E5 and E6. So for every edge we need to find the vector representation, right? We need to find the vector of every edges. We need to define the edge vector for each of these edges. So what is the edge vector for E1? It is 1 0 0, because there is only a displacement along x axis. For edge E2, as we discussed earlier, there is a displacement along x axis as well as y axis. So the edge vector for E2 will be 1 1 0. For E3, it is positive displacement along x axis and negative displacement along y axis. So it is 1 minus 1 0. What about edge E4? There is only a displacement along y axis by a value of 2, right? So for edge E4 we can write it as 0 2 0. For edge 3 we can write it as, or this can be 0 3 0, because there are three values that will be used here. So E5 will be minus 3 along x axis, no displacement along y axis, so minus 3 0 0, and E6 will be 0 minus 2 0. Okay, so you can just consider this edge here, or this will be 3, you can change it to 3 and minus 3 also. Okay, so as per this diagram, let me just correct this to 3 and minus 3. This should be plus 3, this should be minus 3. I hope you got understood how to convert a polygon edges into its corresponding edge vector representation. Okay, now we need to find the cross products of the successive edges. Okay, first we need to find E1 cross E2, E2 cross E3, E3 cross E4, E4 cross E5 and E5 cross E6 in the counterclockwise order. If any of the cross product has a negative z value, z component, the polygon is concave, and we need to split the polygon along the first edge vector in the cross edge product pair. Let us see what is that. Okay, where the z component is 0, since all the edges are in the xy plane, the cross product of Ej cross Ek for two successive edge vectors is a vector that is perpendicular to the xy plane. The z component equal to Ejx Eky minus Ekx into Ejy. That is, let us consider the cross product for the edge vectors E1 cross E2. The z component will be a positive value. For E2 cross E3, the z component will be negative. So what is that edge here? E2 cross E3, the z component is negative. So if we get a negative z component for a cross product, we need to extend the first edge in the cross product pair. What is the first edge here in the cross product? E2 is the first cross edge in the cross product pair. So we need to extend the edge E2, something like this. So if we extend it, this particular polygon will be split into two polygons, polygon 1 and polygon 2. And you can observe both these polygons will be a convex polygon. Polygon 1 is a convex polygon, same as polygon 2 also. Since the cross product of E2 cross E3 has a negative z component, we split the polygon along the line of vector E2. The line equation for this edge has a slope of 1 and the y-intercept of minus 1. No edge cross, other edge cross products are negative, so only two polygons are formed and both are convex. As you can see, no other cross products of the adjacent edges will give us a negative z component. So only one edge cross product pair will give us a negative z component, so we can split this polygon only once along by extending the edge E2 to form the polygon 1 and polygon 2. Both these will be a convex polygon. That is one method. We call this method as the vector method. So what do we do in this vector method? Suppose we are given this polygon, we first determine the edge vector for each of the edges, and then we find the cross product of the adjacent vectors in a clockwise manner or in a counterclockwise manner. Now for any of the cross product of the adjacent edges, if there is a negative z component value, we extend the edge along that particular edge, which is the first edge in the cross product pair. Suppose in our example we found the cross product of edge E2 and E3 yields is a negative z component value. So E2 will be the first vector in this cross product pair, so we need to extend the edge E2 in order to split this polygon into two polygons. That is a vector method for splitting a convex polygon into concave, vector method for splitting a concave polygon into a bunch of convex polygons. Now we also have two more methods. Second method, we call it as a rotational method. So proceeding counterclockwise along the polygon edges, we shift the position of the polygon so that each vertex is in turn at the coordinate origin. We place each of the vertices of the polygon so that it lies at the origin. We rotate the polygon about the origin in clockwise direction so that the next vertex is on the line that represents the x-axis. For example, initially the x-axis origin, we place v1 at the x-axis, so that vertex v2 will, we place vertex v1 at the origin so that vertex v2 lies on the x-axis, and then we check if there is any part of the polygon which is lying below the x-axis. So if we place v1 and v2, if we place v1 at the origin and v2 along the x-axis, v4 will also lie on the x-axis. So no part will be lying below the x-axis. So we need to consider the second vertex. So we place vertex v2 at the origin and the next vertex, that is v3, along the x-axis. Now what we observe is this part of the polygon will be lying below the x-axis. So we need to split the polygon into this part. So this polygon will be the new convex polygon that we found. We then split the polygon along the x-axis to form two new polygons, and we repeat the concave test for each of the two new polygons. Okay, so it's called as the rotational method. We rotate the polygon in such a way that we start from the first vertex, we place this vertex at the origin, and the immediate next vertex on the along the x-axis. If there is no part of the polygon that is lying below the x-axis, we consider the next vertex. We place vertex v2 on the origin and vertex v3 along the x-axis. Then we found that the vertex v4 is lying below the x-axis, and whatever part of the polygon is lying below the x-axis, we need to split the polygon there. We repeat it until there are no longer concave polygons that are existing. This is called as a rotational method. So proceeding counterclockwise around the polygon edges, we shift the position of the polygon so that each vertex vk in turn is at the coordinate origin. We rotate the polygon about the origin in a clockwise direction so that the next vertex vk plus 1 is on the x-axis. If the following vertex vk plus 2 is below the x-axis, the polygon is a concave polygon. We then split the polygon along the x-axis to form two new polygons, and we repeat the concave test for each of the two new polygons. So that is the rotational method. There is one more method for splitting a convex polygon into a set of triangles. Once we have a vertex list for convex polygon, we could transform it into a set of triangles. First, we define any sequence of three consecutive vertices to be a new triangle or a new polygon. The middle triangle vertex is then deleted from the original vertex list. The same procedure is applied to the modified vertex list to strip off another triangle. We continue forming the triangles in this manner until the original polygon is reduced to just set of three vertices which determine the last triangle in a set. Concave polygon can also be divided into a set of triangles using this approach, although care must be taken that the new diagonal edge formed by joining the first and the third selected vertices does not cross the concave portion of the polygon, and that the three selected vertices at each step form an interior angle that is less than 180 degree. So in this particular method, what we do is we define a sequence of three consecutive vertices in a polygon to form a triangle. Then the middle vertex of that particular triangle is deleted from the original vertex list. Same procedure is applied. The two remaining vertices are used to form the next triangle, and the middle vertex is deleted. We repeat it until there are only last three set of vertices left out. That is how we split a given convex polygon into a set of triangles. So concave polygon can also be split using the similar method, although we must take care that new diagonal edge formed by joining the first and the third selected vertices does not cross the concave portion of the polygon, and that the three selected vertices at each step form an interior angle that is less than 180 degree. So these are the three methods for splitting a concave polygon into a convex polygon. So in this particular video session, we discussed what do you mean by fill area, we understood what do you mean by polygon fill areas, we understood the classification of polygons, we defined what is a concave polygon, what is a convex polygon, what are the conditions for a polygon to be called as convex polygon, what are the characteristics of concave polygon. Then we discuss the methods to identify concave polygon. We identified two methods, okay, two algorithms for identifying the concave polygon. Then we understood how to split the concave polygon into convex polygon. We discussed three methods there. That is, the first method was the vector method, second method was the rotational method, and the third method was the splitting of the polygon into a set of triangles. With this, let us conclude this video session. Thank you.